when you look at, I know Trump is a polarizing figure, but America, the question is, what do we do? Everybody doesn't like what he's doing, but the question is, do you do something? Do you do something differently, or you do nothing? So that's what I'm like. I feel what people are saying, but I'm like, yo, when I see someone doing something to address something, and I don't see any alternate strategy, I'm like, if there's no alternate strategy, then there may not be an alternate strategy. Well, welcome back, everybody, to the Crucial Combo Podcast. I got the squad in the building. Everybody's good. The whole gang is good on this Friday Eve. And we're going to chop it up about what everybody loves and hates to talk about. So I wouldn't say politics per se. I think it's good for us to just talk about the state of America and some of the things that y'all feel that's going on. There's so much going on. So I kind of want to touch on like maybe three topics, right? So I wanted to touch on, I guess maybe we can kind of start with immigration because I know that that's probably more of the smaller issue right now. But Tanja, you just brought up something and you were saying that you were like, you're not really comfortable with leaving the country necessarily, and some issues that you feel like, are y'all like, what do y'all feel? Do y'all feel a little bit worried? Maybe not personally, but do y'all feel worried for other people with immigration? What do y'all feel?
I do. I do. I think that right now, in the wake of certain things happening, like someone being quote unquote accidentally deported, and this whole stink that they're making about bringing him back to into the country, and and people are being opposed to it because he's supposedly a gang member, yet there's no evidence of him being a gang member. You're going on the word of, you know, Republicans who are adamant about something without any evidence. So it's just like, it's scary because you almost feel like, well, shit, they can just label anybody anything and decide, okay, we going to, run you up out of here. And there's other people who have dealt with it. I think there was a couple that was deported. They'd been in the country for over 40 years.
Yeah,
They
I
were
heard about
recently
them.
I
deported.
don't even think I heard
Um,
about that.
Yeah.
They were from
yeah,
if I'm not mistaken, it might have been the LA area. They were from, and
I
don't
think
quote me, it
so.
was either Cuba or
I think they were,
Colombia.
yeah, it was either Cuba or Colombia, one of those. But
Yeah.
they were deported. Um,
And they like they raised their kids and everything. They raised
Yeah.
their kids and have grandkids, and I think
Hmm.
they came here in 1980, and they
mhm.
didn't have, I guess for whatever reason they came here as an asylum seekers in 1980, and I guess they didn't have their papers straight all this time, so they got deported. So yeah, it's a little crazy. I thought that story in particular was a little wild to me because they had like businesses and they're retired and
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
got a whole family, so that was a little wild. So
Been paying taxes
Yeah.
and
yeah,
being good citizens for all these years, and suddenly you get deported to someplace that you really don't have any
Yeah.
ties to. I mean, that's
Yeah.
Like that's
terrifying,
not home.
Yeah.
Like, you're not. That's not home to you anymore.
right?
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. Well, and they're not even from
Yeah. They're
Venezuela,
never
so it's
there.
like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a random country.
No,
right?
they didn't get. They weren't deported to Venezuela. They were deported back to their home country. It was either Cuba
Were
or
they?
Colombia. Yeah,
I
they
thought
didn't go
they
to
were.
Venezuela. They were
Oh,
sent
okay.
back to their actual
Okay.
their
Yeah.
home country. But yeah,
But
to
after
your
40
point, B,
years, is
that's
that
not
really
home.
their home country anymore? That's their birth
Right.
country. They were in their
Yes.
home country. They just got kicked
That's
out of
true.
it. So
Yeah.
That's very
And
true.
I took a
Very
whole
very true.
Supreme Court judgment. The Supreme Court, they ruled 9-0 to bring him back home. Like, why does it need to be that way? You mistakenly took him from his home, put him back. Hmm.
Wait, now are we talking about a specific person?
Yes. What
Because
is
I know
his
you.
The
name?
guy that mistakenly illegally deported.
Yeah.
They claimed he was here. When did he here on asylum as well? What was his name?
See what his name is.
Let me
Um,
look that up. Now, now the guy that you're talking about was he did he come into the country within the last 4 years?
No, he's been here for a while. I
He,
think they're talking about the one about the guy that's been here for a while.
mm-hmm.
He's been here
um,
for a while and was married with
Omar Abrego
children.
Garcia.
Is
He's
that
in
his
El
name?
right,
Salvador.
right, right.
Mm-hmm.
And it took an act of the Supreme Court to bring him back. They say there was already a court order in place for him to not be deported, but that order was ignored, and they sent him to El Salvador because the reason he left was because he was under threat of being, you know, killed by the cartel. And
Okay.
he was. They said there's no evidence of him being involved in a gang
No.
or being affiliated with the gang in any way, and that was the reasoning that they used to deport him.
He wasn't supposed to be
Even
deported
though a
either.
Oh, okay.
A
he
court
wasn't
ruled
right because
against
there was
it.
a
They
court
foreboded it, and they still moved forward with it.
and deported him anyway.
That's insane.
That's
So we're
terrible,
just ignoring
isn't it?
judgments and rulings. Like, right,
Exactly. And then won't even admit, okay, we made this was wrong. This shouldn't have been done.
mm,
Let's try to fix this. No, he should be it doesn't matter what the judge said. He should be deported because he was a member of MS-13.
she's not.
Well, if Homeland Security already investigated and said we find no evidence of this person being a part of this gang, therefore we are issuing an order to block deportation, then why? And then how? What do you have to stand on to now accuse this man of being part of a gang and justifying and really technically illegal
Hmm.
deportation?
Right.
Okay, so Kilmar Armando Abrigo
Garcia.
Garcia.
Yep.
Mhm.
He was living in Maryland and was deported to maximum prison terrorist confinement center in El Salvador in 2025 in March. Despite having both immigration judge order to protect him from removal to El Salvador, since 2019, him and his wife and 5 year old, are both American citizens. He was deported through the Trump administration. Okay, so let's look at that. Well, I think that yeah, he was arrested. He's arrested at Home Depot. Home Depot is not the place to be these days. I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna tell you
Man,
right now. Home Depot
Those
is not
parking
the
lots are
place to be.
empty.
man,
They
No,
packed
ISIS
in the
taking out the
morning
parking
and
lot.
mm-hmm.
listen. They are
Jeez.
dialing it up. I live probably about less than maybe a third of a mile from a Home Depot. And when
Mm-hmm.
you go closer to the Home Depot, you got our brown brothers, and I don't say brothers and sisters, our brown brothers out there probably looking for day work. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if they're illegal, not illegal, but what I noticed is that since the Trump administration came in, the local police, the East Orange police, they hit the sirens on these guys when they're standing. They usually stand, and this is not Home Depot yet. This is getting to Home Depot, and they
Mm-hmm.
kind of congregate. The police be like, putting the sirens on and telling them to break up. So, Home Depot congregating is probably not the best place to be,
Uh,
but that's just a side note. I'm not saying anything's right. I
Right.
think that there's definitely some people who've gotten swept up. That guy, the couple from Cuba or Colombia, I can't remember which country. So there are
Mm-hmm.
some examples, but I think the other thing that I noticed too is that we have a problem. The problem of immigration the last 4 years, I think, has also contributed to it. You know what I'm saying? And I think that America has got to kind of figure out where they want to go as far as immigration because we have extremely lax immigration here in comparison to other countries. Um, so I don't condone the things that are wrong, but I think that the very lax system we have here causes those problems because then you have, in my opinion, you had a very lax system where people were coming in and it would take years and years and years for people to deal with these things. And I think that that's somewhat of a an incentive sometimes for some who come into the country like, yo, I'm gonna come in and they're not gonna figure this out for years. By the time they figure it out, I'm gonna be already planted here. I'm gonna have my kids, have my family, and I think that's part of the big problem with immigration. But you
Hmm.
know, it's
I mean,
just
I
killing
definitely agree with you, but just the way that they're trying to handle it now retroactively is just cruel in a
Hmm.
lot of cases, and just it just to me it just defies logic and integrity to just treat people with some level of humanity and
Yeah.
say it does whether regardless of whether it was the Biden administration or the previous administration or whoever and however the immigration laws are what they are, you're still dealing with human lives and variations of people who are here for a variety of reasons, whether it is, you know, legitimate asylum, trying to find a better life, or you have people who are here for nefarious reasons, murderers and rapists and child molesters. You do have that population of people that are here as well. But I think that it just makes sense that when you're dealing with human beings, that you deal with it in a
Hmm.
humane, logical, and lawful way
Yeah.
versus this so much vitriol now based on, broken up by party lines, and now everything is just done with so much hatred and so much anger and so much bitterness that the law and humanity is just gone out the
Yeah.
window. It's like, we're doing everything based on how we feel, the law be damned, which is just is very
It's
dangerous.
very
So it is scary.
dangerous when our
It's
government
it's it's
is ignoring the rule of law.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah.
I
absolutely.
like this. I like this. I like the energy. I like the energy. Uh, Tanja, you look like you contemplating something.
I mean, it's just too much to think about when it comes to immigration. I mean, this country, I mean, we're all immigrants. I mean, so just to think that, that we have a president that is just not even, I mean, this president is ruthless. I mean, he's a sociopath, in my opinion.
He's also the son of
Um,
immigrants.
right,
Right,
exactly.
The husband of an
right.
immigrant.
Um,
Your
Yeah.
in-laws are
Right.
immigrants. I
Yeah.
mean,
So
your wife
your wife's an
is an
immigrant.
immigrant.
Hmm.
So I don't understand where the bitterness and the
Yeah.
vitriol comes in unless you just look at it from a standpoint of race.
Yeah.
yeah, I just think it, I mean, I really think that's what it boils down to. He just does not want people with brown skin to be in this country,
Yeah.
period.
Now
And
let's explore. No, go ahead. Go ahead, Tanja. I don't mean to cut you
I
off.
mean, I don't even think that's realistic. I mean, this country, I mean, just like I said, I mean, that's what we're known for. I mean, that's why people come to the United States. That's why people want to be in the United States. So, I mean, the fact that we have a president that wants this country to look like him is just not even realistic. But that's what he's trying to do. So,
Okay.
you know.
I love this because I think that we're at a point now where everybody is arguing and everybody has different points of view depending on their experience, and I think that's important for us all to explore that. Now, with immigration though, so let's assume for a second that that's not the case as far as the skin color, right? So I think one of the issues with immigration, like when you start to talk about the money spent, right? So I do agree we should be humane about immigration. But when you start to look at the money that was actually spent on people who came into the country, that part is very interesting. So recently, so the some of the sanctuary cities. So Eric Adams in New York, um, the mayor of Chicago, Brandon Adams,
Brandon Johnson.
and Mayor, excuse me, Brandon Johnson. I always confuse the two. Brandon Johnson, sorry. Yeah, he's interesting, but it's a whole nother story. But
Another
Brandon
episode.
Johnson, Eric Adams, New York, the mayor of Boston, and the mayor of Denver, they recently testified how much money they spent. So I think it's an interesting time. Let's take Chicago, for example. In Chicago, Brandon Johnson, he's funny because he didn't want to when they testified how much money they spent. He was very reluctant to talk about how much money was spent. So Eric Adams for New York. Eric Adams, Eric Adams has got his get out of jail free card from Donald Trump. They dropped the charges on him, so he didn't have a problem saying how much money they spent in New York. They spent $8.6 billion for the money for on illegal migrants in New York as the sanctuary city. So I've had these conversations with a friend of mine also too, who was, we have these debates back and forth, and I was like, it does cost the country a lot of money. So I think it's something that we had to reckon with a little bit because then you look at in Chicago too, Chicago for example, like you start to look at some of our cities and you look at where we at as America, and then you look how much money they spend on a lot of the people who came over here the last like 4 years. It's crazy numbers. So I think it's an interesting thing because I think Trump is not a likable president. I would say per se. You either like him or you don't
Understatement.
like him.
Oh, at all.
But I think the reason why I say this, I think a lot of the dislike for him per se, it kind of blurs what's actually happening in the country. So with immigration, I think that when you look at how much taxpayer money we spent in our country, it is a lot of money. You know what I'm saying? And it's just an interesting situation. So when in our country, even if you're black, you look at the black community, we arguing, some of us is arguing about people who came over here, but yet our community, some of our communities is toe up. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of
Most of
like
us.
how do we reckon with those two things? You know what I'm saying? Because in some ways we're fighting harder for people who came over here. And again, not everybody's a criminal, but it is tax resources that's going to subsidize and take care of people. It's a lot of
A lot
money.
of them do pay
So
taxes. But and the thing is, so when Joe Biden became president, there's like a whole influx of migrants coming in. And that's where all these major cities started giving money and providing shelter. Like they're doing way too much in terms of immigration. But before then, I think we're in a happy medium because the assumption is that these migrants come in and they just live off the government when that is not necessarily the case. These are people who have businesses, who pay taxes, who've been part of our country. Now, yes, we do need to. It can't be a come to America for free. Like literally, when Biden became president, like they was straight running across the. It was ridiculous, right? So it was way too much. But that doesn't mean that our current president needs to just go willy nilly and just round up Latinos, and it's Latinos that he's targeting. We've got immigrants from all over the world, but he's
Right.
focusing on Spanish speaking people. So it's targeted, and then he is vilifying them by calling them gangbangers and murderers. And he keeps talking about this young lady who was killed by MS-13, whatever. And I mean, it's all horrible. But what he does is he gigantifies situations to cause people to go into hysteria. So now his followers, who more than likely are not the brightest people, they're having these irrational fears of Spanish speaking migrants. Like it's too much. No, I don't think people should be able to come here and live off of us. I do feel like, especially when Joe Biden came in office, there were a lot of resources being given to that demographic at the expense of black communities, to be honest, especially in Chicago. Like they couldn't afford to, have community centers opened up in the hood or different things because, oh, we got to reallocate this funding or migrants are, we're
Mhm.
going to make this whole building into a migrant shelter. But we got homeless people, homeless American citizens. So it did get ridiculous. That's the reality of it. That's not always been the reality though. And a lot of these people that they're reporting are taxpayers. They are workers. They are key workers. They're doing jobs that American born people don't want to do. So who's going to do these jobs?
Yeah. I mean, I was just reading something to your point. I was just reading something recently where the farmers in Nebraska and Kentucky and some parts of Illinois even can't even get workers to come support their farms anymore because the immigrants won't come out and work.
Yeah,
I mean,
because
they're
they
scared ICE is going to come out and
exactly.
get them.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, and so to your point as well, people don't realize that they do pay taxes. I mean, they're not just here for free. I mean, and they also have jobs that a lot of black people don't want those jobs.
Not
I
black
mean,
jobs.
black people don't want to work for $2, $3. I mean, seriously. Yeah, they don't want to do that work. So,
Well, I think we should also differentiate, and I think that that's important. I think we should differentiate. Um, I think we should differentiate between illegal and someone who's over here. So I think that's the part of the conversation too, because if you're illegal, like literally illegal, well, illegal can be illegal. It's subjective, so it depends on how you want to define it. But if we're talking about someone who came over here completely undocumented, let's say that they're not paying taxes. So I think it's important to detangle those two because I think that's the other thing too. People assume that they're paying taxes. So what happens is that, and I know of situations. I'm not going to say specifically, but I know of situations where people work and they get paid cash because their status is not right for a long time, and they may work in a restaurant, they may work at other places, and the owner pays them cash because and the problem with that is that one, they're being paid cash, they don't pay taxes. Two, the employer doesn't pay unemployment insurance. The employer can take advantage of them because they have no rights. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
so a lot there are a lot of people, to your point, Savvy, when Biden was in office, they always use the figure of 10 million people. When you had that many people come in who can't, one of the reasons why they went to the sanctuary cities is because they weren't documented and they actually couldn't work. I think they were trying to work on getting work permits for people, I guess, but that's a
Yeah.
long process. So having that many people come in, and what I found offensive is I feel like they put, like Chicago, for example, to your point, they put all the migrants in black
Mm.
neighborhoods. They didn't put them anywhere else. You know what
Mm.
I'm saying? They put them right up in the hood. So if you look at Chicago, I've watched a lot of Chicago residents. They hate Brandon Johnson Adam
Johnson.
Brandon
It's
Johnson.
Johnson.
They hate Brandon Johnson. His approval rating is like 7%. It's like the worst.
Yikes.
Um, and it's amongst other things. It's not just the migrant thing. But when I look at that, I'm like, how do we detangle these things? 'Cause I get it. Nobody likes Donald Trump. I get it. But at the same time, like when you look at all the people being put in, and not to vilify them per se, but just factual as far as especially where black people are. I felt a little offended by the fact that they put them in black neighborhoods and put resources into people who just came in,
Hmm.
but yet
Yeah.
nobody can find any money or resources for the black neighborhoods.
Hmm.
And so I just find that it's an interesting thing. There's points on both
Hmm.
sides, but I think it's hard for people to talk about those things because I feel like anything that feels pro-Trumpish, no one want to talk about it. It's not about Trump, but I'm like, you look at the money that was spent, and then with Chicago, Brandon Johnson took out they taken out a bond to for funds. They take out I think it's eight. Don't quote me. It might be $800 million bond. They put out a bond so they can borrow that money from bondholders for infrastructure and for the city. But they have to pay back. They're going to do this over 30 years. They got to pay back like $2 billion. So after the interest is paid over that 30 years, Chicago got to pay back 2 billion from 800 million they borrowing.
That's
So
crazy.
when you look at that, I'm like, they gonna pass that along to our kids. You know what I'm saying? Our kids. They gonna pass that debt along. So
It's
I
kind of
think people's
ridiculous.
argument about yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. So I think that there's a way to do immigration. I don't agree with everything with Donald Trump, but I think that our borders have been so lax. I'm like, it's just like one of those things where it's like if you could come to any country where it's so lax and they gonna deal with it way later, it's kind of an incentive, and it's kind of a slap. Like I said, I feel like the black people face the money that was spent, being that they put them in our neighborhoods. That's
The
just
thing,
my opinion.
the issue with black people is we're too loyal and we want to align ourselves with a party. And if you're really looking out for the interest of black people, we cannot afford to be loyal to a party because to be honest, it is the same
Right.
difference when it comes to the black agenda. We need to get people in office and hold them to it. Just because Joe Biden is not Donald Trump and he had a black vice president, that does not make us him our black savior. And whoever
Right.
follows Trump, Lord, let there be a follow up to Trump. We cannot just be stuck with this forever. But we just need to hold our elected officials accountable. And we cannot be like, oh, we Republicans, we Democrats. And you're right. There's so much vitriol for Trump that it is hard to see the forest through the trees. But I mean, right now, everything he does is just garbage. There could be there could be some substance in what he does if it made sense and it would truly benefit. But right now, he's just causing chaos in our country for no reason, and it's benefiting his 1%. Even all this back and forth with the tariffs and the up and down with the stock market, like this is all a plan that has nothing
Yeah.
to do with us. If I felt like some of the things he was doing, and I was hopeful, like, well, maybe if he were to do this, this could help us out. It's not. It's causing instability in our households, in our jobs, with our bank accounts. And it's not a great place to be right now to be in America. So maybe I need to be an immigrant somewhere else, go to one of these
Right.
countries because there's too much instability.
Yeah, the sad thing too about what Donald Trump is doing and the impact it's having on the economy. I mean, this country is known for trading. Like, there's no way that we're going to be able to survive if
No.
we can't trade.
Mhm.
Um, and the fact that China doesn't want anything to do with the U.S. and we owe them trillions of
Our
dollars.
biggest creditor. Yep.
Yeah, Canada wants nothing to do with us anymore.
Hmm.
Europe pretty much doesn't want anything to do with us anymore. I mean, what Donald Trump is doing is really isolating the United States from
The world.
all of our
Right.
all of our
Yeah.
allies. Um, I'm just not really sure, honestly, guys. Like, that's why I really didn't want to talk about this. I'm really not sure what state this is going to put us in. And the fact that he tried to dismantle the FDIC, which secures our money, but he didn't succeed at doing that. And then the consumer, what is it? Consumer financial,
CFBPB,
um, yeah.
Protection
And
Bureau.
so then he didn't succeed at doing that, but he almost succeeded at doing that. All I'm going to say is, Black people, we need to make sure we put our money in a safe place.
New boxes and
Uh,
mattresses.
you exactly that, and probably some international accounts, probably some gold. I'm serious. Really start thinking about what you're going to do with your money, because we're about to move into some interesting times, seriously. And Black people better wake up, and we better start talking to each other, because trust me, another thing that Donald Trump is doing with the stock market, with these damn tariffs. So if you'll notice, an economist just talked about this the other day. When the stock market goes down, billionaires are buying, then it goes back up. It's almost like some type of algorithm that Trump has going on. And
It's based on when he
billionaires and
puts the
millionaires
tariffs
are
out
buying
there.
when it,
He'll say,
hmm,
okay, we're going to do tariffs. And he'll say, oh, no, no
and
tariffs.
then it
Yep. And then he say,
drops.
oh, no, you know what? We're going to do a 90-day hold on those tariffs.
And then it goes back up.
Yep.
Yes.
It goes back up.
Yeah, so you have to kind of watch this man, because I'm
That's helping
serious.
out
It's
the cronies that were
yeah,
buying up a whole bunch of stuff once that stock
yeah,
market dropped. And then as soon as he said, "Oh no, my bad,"
Yeah,
and it shot right back
it
up.
goes back up.
Now everything that they bought is worth so much more than they just paid for it,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
that's not coincidental. No, that is not lost on anybody. I mean,
Mm-mm.
come
Did
No.
you throw the pen?
I did. It's just frustrating because I just got off of a call today because I have a business too, and the
Hmm.
way that this is impacting small businesses is ridiculous. Like, I have a construction company, and so part of my business is buying materials,
Hmm.
and part of it is buying materials that come from other countries.
yep.
Hmm.
And so, I mean, it's it's go it's just gonna affect all of us eventually. So we have to be
That was
prepared.
one of the things that they were saying is going to be one of the things that are most affected, which is the cost of lumber, which is going to drive the cost of home building way up. The used cars, I mean, they're already expensive now. I mean, you can't even get a decent used car for 2, 3 thousand like you used to be able to. Now, I mean, for a car that would have normally been worth about $3,500, you're going to be paying at least double for it.
You know how much
And
stuff we import from China, and we playing with them?
Everything.
Like,
Everything.
Well, this is I'm loving this because this is a great transition to the next topic. So I wanted to talk about trade. So now here's the thing. This conversation would be no fun if we all agreed. So I don't disagree with y'all, but I think that there's a lot of context taken out, or a lot of context not being included. So for instance, with trade, so trade is actually a cancer that America's had for a long time. So I'm not sure if y'all are aware of this clip that's been become very popular from Nancy Pelosi. And if you don't know who Nancy Pelosi is, you're under a rock because she's one of the most famous Republicans, uh, right? So,
Wait, what?
I mean, excuse me,
He just
one of the
called
most
her
famous
Republican. Oh,
Democrats. My
okay.
bad, my
Seriously?
bad.
I'm like, did she switch
Okay.
sides or
I'm
what?
like, I'm like,
famous,
did I miss
famous.
something? Did she?
Oh no, see, I thought you said that intentionally though, because
No, no, I was bugging out.
they say Democrats are no different than Republicans. They're
We
all the same.
we
They're
could we
all
could
the
say
same.
that, but no,
Yeah.
famous Democrats. Now, there's a clip that came recently from 1996. That came up where she was talking about trade. Um, I was gonna play it, but I'm not gonna play it right now. So she basically talks about she's testifying in 1996. She's talking about the 1995 numbers, and she's talking about trade with China and the trade deficit. And she's essentially saying all the same things Donald Trump is saying now. The figures are just different, but she's talking about job loss. She's talking about the imbalance and how it's going to affect the U.S. So I think what's going on now, and I don't disagree with what you all are saying. I think what's going on now is that Americans, we're a little spoiled, in my opinion. We're a little used to certain things, and we don't like the short term feeling of solving a certain issue. So one of the things that with trade, so B, to your point, we we are the biggest consumer of China's goods. So if you go back and so China's the main thing. Let's talk about China for a minute. Um, we set things up a long time ago when China was a nothing country. We set up trade balance or trade indifference because we allowed them to grow their economy. They're rich because of us. So we said, okay, you can import here at a very low percentage, and then when we try to import over there, it's a lot higher. That's just the balance that we have always had with them since the 80s. And they also have regulatory issues or regulatory things set where, just for example, if you're Chinese and you want to come to the US and build a company, you can build a company, right? Not much regulatory issues there if you want to build a company. If you go to China and you want to build a company, you have to partner half with the Chinese company. That's the regulatory thing they have. Like that's how you do business. I know on top of if you want to import there. So what Nancy Pelosi says back in 1996 she talks about reciprocity. She talks about saying, okay, reciprocal tariffs. If we don't do reciprocal tariffs, these are the things that's going to happen to the U.S. Now, I think what happened to the U.S. is we set policy to make it easier for China to buy all their stuff, but kept it hard for them to buy our stuff, which is just a trade imbalance. So that's a cancer I think that started a long time ago. And the reason why I bring up Nancy Pelosi is because we know that that's an issue. I think we can agree that there's an issue, and that's how they enrich themselves, and that's how we created our debt with them. That's how we created it because we buy all their shit. They don't buy our stuff. Trade should be more balanced. So if trade is imbalanced, whoever's on the short end is gonna eat their country from inside out. That's what's happened to us. So with Trump saying, you know what, we want reciprocity. We're gonna come in. We want to up our tariffs to have a reciprocal, to be the same. Well, you charge us, we'll charge you. In theory, that should be fair. China says, and this is just my take. China says, hell no. You wanna increase your shit? No. We're okay. If you increase it, we're gonna hit you back with a retaliatory tariff.
Hmm.
So I guess my question is that when you look at, I know Trump is a polarizing figure, but America, the question is, what do we do? Everybody doesn't like what he's doing, but the question is, do you do something? Do you do something differently, or you do nothing? That's right. So I think what Trump is doing, I think arguably you could say I don't like it. Then I'm like, okay, what I notice is that there's an absence of a counter um a counter strategy. So that's what I'm like, I feel what people are saying, but I'm like, yo, when I see someone doing something to address something and I don't see any alternate strategy, I'm like, if there's no alternate strategy, then there may not be an alternate strategy. And the answer can't
Strategy.
be doing nothing.
The alternate strategy, he's trying to do everything like that, right? So he wants to increase manufacturing in the US, right? But that is not something you can do
Right.
overnight. So even
Sure.
if the basis of what he's doing is cogent, like it's correct, he should be doing that. That's not something you can do in an overnight tariff and say, okay, now we're going to start manufacturing in the U.S. Like you need to have a plan. You need to have infrastructure to support that. So it's still willy nilly and random. And on top of that, you got the whole world mad at us. And then, okay, so Canada and Mexico, back in the 90s, which is shortly before that speech Nancy Pelosi did, we had a free trade agreement with Mexico and Canada. What happened with that?
hmm
So why are you trying? It's like,
Na-
who pits
so
NAFTA?
NAFTA was the NAFTA was actually it worked then. I think it doesn't work now. I think that's the problem. So I think that that's the core of the issue is that we it's interesting because the reason why I like to bring this up because we're kind of in a situation as Americans where like, well, where are we going next? Right. So I don't think I think people agree manufacturing won't come back overnight, but the question is like, well, I was having the same argument with a friend of mine. I wanted him to get on here because he goes hard. He's on all of y'all side. He's on the same page. And we was having that same conversation about 2 hours ago. And he was like, "Well, I don't like the way he's doing it. I think maybe if the premise he's right, but we don't like the way he's doing it." And I was like, I feel that. But then at the same time, like, well, if you have a cancer that you haven't dealt with in a long time, by the time you actually start to put the medicine on it, it's going to be intrusive. It's going to be turbulent. So I was like, well, if you're gonna reset trade between countries, I haven't seen anybody introduce something that wouldn't be chaotic. And to your point, Savvy, is like I was watching an interview with Mark Lamont Hill. He was interviewing Richard Wolff, a respected economist, and Richard Wolff said something that was interesting. And I want to get y'all opinion on this. So what Richard Wolff was saying was that he felt like what Trump is doing is out of desperation, and he was saying that it's it's the thing is that he said the reason why Trump is doing it is that he doesn't want to be the politician or nobody wants to be the one to say that it's over for the American empire. So I was like, maybe that's what it is. no one really has a better alternative way to do it, but some people just feel like it's over. So do y'all think it's like over for the American empire and we're just gonna be number two? Or is there something, or do y'all feel like in that respect, should Trump be fighting to reset these things to change the country, or you feel like it's too late?
American, we think we're number one, but we're not. We're not the richest nation. We're not the big kid on the block. That's just something that Americans think. So it's been
Mm,
over for us, right?
Yeah.
Look over at
okay.
China, look at Japan. Other countries are kicking our butts. If you look at education, healthcare, we're not top.
Mhm.
So
And if it's really a matter of him wanting to not be the president who gets us there, you're really working the opposite because you're alienating all of our allies while you're doing this. So we're falling down the food chain no matter what.
yep,
So
Okay.
you know what I mean. So it's just not the right course of action. If there's an end game, if the end game is to get us to more manufacturing jobs in America, address your people and say, hey, it's going to hurt for a little while. Say something to that effect. Tell us
Well, he did.
when.
He did say exactly that, but people don't. I think people heard it who wanted to hear it because he literally said that. But then there are people who just like. I think the hatred for Trump is so for people who don't like him. They just don't. They ain't even hearing that because they're like,
Well,
"Yo, you know what I'm saying?" So he did.
and
He,
and that's the problem. I think that's probably one of the biggest reasons why we're unable to unify and we're unable to hear the message is because people don't like Trump, and that in itself is a problem. I feel like we
okay.
take that so lightly, like, oh, the people that wanted to hear it, people that wanted to receive it. Well, part of your job as a president is to unify the country
Right.
and to operate the office
build
with some
trust.
integrity.
Yes.
And I will
It's
come
very
back
much
to
possible to have
something
the
more
right idea, but go about it in the wrong way. Like you're
the
doing the
wrong
wrong.
way.
The
And
idea may
that
be correct,
Yep.
but how you're doing it is
exactly.
not
And that
necessarily going to be. That's the problem.
and that is to me, I think that's one of the biggest problems. Because like you said, he might have the right idea about certain things, right? But if you don't deliver the message in a way that is calm and unifying in a way that people can truly understand, and you're coming off in a hateful, um, bitter, angry, divisive way, you people are not going to they're not going to hear your message. They're not going to hear anything you're saying because human nature, we're not going to hear what some you can't stand somebody, you're not hearing nothing they saying. And so
That's true.
he has a duty to not only deliver the message in a way that's inclusive, in a way that is with integrity, that everybody can receive,
Hmm.
but he needs to also go about doing things in a way that is going to be the least initially detrimental. Yeah, there's some things you can't avoid. Some things are just going to hurt. Got it.
Hmm.
Okay, prepare yourself for it, you deal with it. But I'm going to keep going back to something that B said a long time ago, and I just still love this analogy about the garbage can lid. When you're serving up a good meal, do you serve it on a nice plate or do you serve it on a garbage can lid? How you deliver that
Yeah,
makes a really big difference on how people are
yeah.
going to
Mm,
receive it.
true.
So he keeps coming with the garbage can lid to people that he knows are have more refined taste. Like, I want the meal, but I don't want to eat it like that. Come to me in a way that's going to be respectful. Come to me in a way that shows me that you value my
But he
opinion.
has no
You
intention
value
to. That's the thing. He's in a
and
position where there's really nothing that would incentivize him to speak to the country in that manner.
and that's where the lack of integrity comes in, and that is a problem. So people saying, oh, you don't like Trump, you don't like Trump,
What
but
is that?
because you're not hearing the message, he's got good policies and all this and other and that. Well, and they act like that's no big deal, that you're just so ignorant and you just don't know what you're talking about because you don't like Trump, you're making it about him. Well, he's making it about him. And that makes it difficult for the country to be in the place that it could possibly and potentially be because he's making it that way.
He surrounds himself with
Well, you know what?
competent people. Like the people he put in place are not competent. So let's say that meal looks delicious, but the person who cooked it, they're not capable of putting forth a great meal. So on top of him making it
They
about
didn't season
himself,
it right.
he puts people in place who are not fit for the positions he's putting them in.
There is absolutely zero reason Elon Musk should be a part of our government. What
Oh my
what
Oh,
what what is
we
why is
gonna
he
get
there?
to Elon Musk. We gonna get to Elon Musk because that's the we gonna get there.
There is
Trust me,
zero
we
reason for
gonna
his
get there. That's
presence in our government.
but
Oh
yeah,
Lord.
well, we gonna get there because we gonna get there. Before we get to Elon, though, I want to stay on this for a minute now. Now, the thing is that, and I love that we having this conversation because I feel like you know everybody wants everybody to agree and see through the same lens. So I think it's important. Now, I am not a Trumper per se, but I don't have the same disdain that maybe y'all have per se because I'm looking at some different things. However, I do think it's important for people to talk about how they feel and how they see stuff. And I think more people don't talk and understand why people feel the way they feel, then it gets even more very culty. It becomes very culty, Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal, all that stuff. So I think that like Taja, you were saying, I know it's frustrating, but I think it's good to have these conversations because we got to get out of our corner and start having conversations as Americans. That's how I see it. So let me ask y'all on that point now. The the hate for Donald Trump, I do understand it. Um, but I also find it very interesting. It's so interesting to me because it's so polarizing. So let me ask y'all, did y'all feel that way about 45 Trump? Or is it just 47 Trump? How did y'all feel of 45 Trump?
The
The
same
Same,
for
same.
but
both.
he's just
And
gotten
Gina,
worse
let Gina
now.
rock out because Gina hasn't said much.
The same for both. Couldn't stand him
Okay.
then, and I can't stand him now.
You didn't like him at 45.
Absolutely not.
Now, what turned you off about 45 Trump? Just out of curiosity.
I mean, it wasn't just the fact that he was running. I mean, everything he's done before that. You know what I mean?
Okay.
It's just ridiculous. Especially for me, the exonerated five, that whole
Oh my
case,
God.
I mean, that was
Okay.
absolutely insane. Okay, so
Okay.
no, no, I was never for Trump, never liked anything he did. I don't care how close he was to celebrities and all, being in the park. I didn't care about any of that. No,
Got you.
no.
So it was a wrap for him. It was a wrap for him regardless,
Yes,
personally. Got you.
yes.
And that's
Well,
fair.
he's always delivered himself in the same, you know, just brash,
Yes.
you know,
Hmm.
dishonest sort of way
Yep,
um, before he even ran for president. So he showed his character then. And
yep.
when you see someone with such questionable character, you're like, "Ugh, I don't want this guy representing the country
Right.
that
Mhm.
I'm from." And it becomes
Exactly.
scary to think that, wow, are people seeing the same things that I'm seeing? And now all of a sudden, people are starting to rewrite history and change narratives and act like all the things that he did that were less than scrupulous
Mm.
didn't never happened. People are acting like he never said anything bad about black people. Oh, because
Right.
he took a picture with P Diddy and he went to parties and he was hanging with so
Exactly.
and so.
hmm
Exactly.
That
Yep.
that may be true, but a lot of stuff that Trump does is for show.
Yes.
He goes a good simple example was when he was running the first time, and he would get different rappers up there. Like like he had Little Pump up there, who and a lot of people that don't even
Said
know who
who?
Lil Pump is. Right?
Exactly.
They don't know
That's
who Lil
that's
Pump
the
is.
point. No, not many of us do.
Nobody knew who he was. But you know what? He had a kind of an up and coming career. I saw him on the Video Music Awards. A little young guy. He's been pretty much persona non grata since then. You haven't seen him anywhere. He just went straight downhill. But Trump, I want to introduce you to one of the most successful rap artists out there. Please welcome Lil
Little
Pimp.
pump, little pimp.
Okay, that's not his name, number one.
We
His
call him
name's
Lil
Lil
Pimp.
Pump.
He did.
We called him Lil
He
Pimp.
did.
Clearly didn't
Lil
know
Pimp.
who this guy, didn't know who he was. I'm sure ain't
Okay.
never heard any of his music,
Yep.
but he introduces him as if that's his boy. He's one of the most successful rap artists out there, all this and that.
Right.
So that just shows you right there the level of dishonesty, the lack of integrity,
Hmm.
and using people to portray a
Yep.
certain.
That's a slippery slope. You go
It's
pay
not
for
a
something.
slippery slope.
I'll tell
It
you
this
why
this,
when you're
this is
done.
black and white.
It's a
It is
slippery
what it
slope.
is.
Definitely use it.
Why is it a
Now,
slippery slope?
well, it's a slippery slope because now, before I say what I'm going to say, will we hold other people to the same standard that you just said?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so let's do it. Let's do
Oh,
it. So, you know where I'm going.
I already
Kamala
know where
ran.
I'm about to
Okay.
go.
Kamala
Okay.
ran, and one of the first people she had up there was Meg Thee Stallion shaking her ass.
We didn't like that either.
So,
That was some
who?
not
bullshit
one of the
We
too.
didn't
first
like that
ones,
Wait
either.
a
That
minute.
but
was
it was
bullshit too.
inappropriate.
Not
Yeah,
everybody
they
likes
Wait a
definitely did not
wait a
like
No, a
minute.
that.
lot of
Wait a
people did
I did
minute.
not
not get
like
her
that.
brownie
Wait
I'm
a
points.
minute.
sorry.
Okay.
Wait a minute.
No.
Wait a minute. Let's stick on the point because you said that shows lack of integrity. So what I'm saying is
Okay.
that when Kamala did it, when Kamala had um damn near illiterate Cardi B up there who needed
Oh
a phone to
no,
speak,
Cardi B is very intelligent.
when
Don't let the little booty shaking
well
fool you.
okay, I'll give you that.
She's
Cardi B
more
ain't no
literate than
dummy.
our
She
president right
got way
now.
Yeah.
she got way more money than me. But here's the thing: when she had Meg Thee Stallion up there and
She's a
she had
college
other rappers
graduate,
up
by the
there,
way. Meg
who?
Thee Stallion.
Make
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm not saying that Meg Thee Stallion doesn't have any I'm not talking about her personally, but we don't know what Little Pump does either. Little Pump could have 10 franchises. We don't know what he has. So
That's
He
hysterical,
so
does.
little
so what
pump.
I'm saying is that
He does.
what I'm saying is that we're gonna say what about integrity when Cardi B was up there doing that and excuse me, Meg Thee Stallion was up there twerking, right? So does that show something about Kamala's integrity or
Yes.
no?
Yes, absolutely it
Okay,
does.
I just wanted to make sure we were clear on that.
I
That's all.
think
No,
in
look,
both
it's not. This
cases,
is not a.
in both those examples, it's literally politicians trying to manipulate the youth vote. And I'm going to try to put somebody in front of
Boom.
you that you can potentially relate to. And whoever I think is the
Thank
hottest
you.
or whoever I'm told is popular right now, if I can align myself with them, maybe I can get the youth to vote for me. It was
Right.
very much
Thank you.
blatant with
So
Kamala. I'm not even going to lie. It was very
yes,
blatant with her. Um,
thank you.
I don't think
It
Thank you,
was
enough
Pam.
people
tacky.
cared about Little Pump at the time for him to make an impact so much, or the impact that dude would have wanted.
Little Pump.
Um,
Little Pimp.
Lil Pimp, yeah, Lil Pimp.
It was embarrassing. It was just. It was so embarrassing. Like wow.
But if
But
I
wait,
Like
wait,
can, this
this
is
wait.
what the
dude
thing.
don't
So
even
let
get
me
a
get
I'll
to
give you
this
name.
another
point.
example. I'll give you another example of what he did to try to. If I can, it's all political moves. Pardoning Kodak Black was not because you like Kodak Black. Kodak Black has an audience, a platform. If I pardon you, I can get you to speak my name to your people and now get more votes from that's all strategy. So those moves were all politically charged. It had nothing to do with helping the community or
Yeah.
I want to be there for black people. I need your platform to bring in more voters for me. And that's what that's all. So I'm going to give you this. That's all that was. So
So to that point though, I just want to understand. And again, I don't think there's any wrong answer. Do you think that how we feel about the person dictates how we feel about what they do? Meaning that
Yeah.
so when Joe Biden goes on the Breakfast Club and says, "Well, you ain't black if you don't vote for me," and then if Donald Trump goes and says the same thing, do we feel different?
nope.
Like, is it
It was
just
bullshit when Biden said it.
And here's
But
the
we
yeah.
didn't have a
thing.
better option.
We didn't have a better option, one.
We
And
didn't have a better
two,
option. It was bullshit when he said it too.
and
So
I would hope that people really look at these people critically. Like even Hillary, I didn't like Hillary Clinton, but I punched the hell out of that Hillary Clinton button because I didn't want Trump to win the first
yeah?
time. I'm not a huge fan,
Right.
and to hear her was she on the Breakfast Club or some TV station talking about she got hot sauce in her bag? Yeah, but you know
hmm
what, sis? We was super predators, you know, 20 years ago when y'all was in Arkansas. Like, no, I'm not buying the Kool-Aid from any of them. But there is
It's the
a
pandering
level
for the
of,
black vote.
yeah, there's a level of intelligence and just reverence that we want people in the highest office of our land to hold. And Trump fails that
Yeah.
tremendously. Okay. So for me, I don't know if I hate him, but it's disappointing to see that he's our president because this is just an
Mhm.
example of another rich white man in a position that he has no business being in. We see this in corporate America. We see it in education. We see it everywhere. But like to have this in the Oval Office, and mind you, if we compare education and knowledge between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump,
Oh no, no,
like,
don't do that.
right.
Don't do
But
that.
it's an
Please
insult.
don't do
It
that.
is an insult.
No,
The
please.
dumbest man in
It is.
America still wins over one of the most highly educated, intelligent black women in America. It's an insult.
Mhm.
So I resent him. I don't hate him. I don't know him like that. I don't like what he does, but I just resent his presence and what he represents for our country because it just reminds me that no matter how much schooling I have, no matter just all the things I do and I work hard for, you can still have a less than mediocre white man come and still fare better than me. That's
Now,
A
as
less
a
than
no,
mediocre
but
convicted
before
felon.
let me reply to that, but I don't want to filibuster, but I want to reply specifically to that. Taja, did you have something to say? You look like you were getting ready to say something.
No, it's just too much to even touch on, honestly. I mean, like we
No,
touch on
it's
I mean,
please.
I think the only thing I want to say is I think Donald Trump is definitely the wrong person to be our president. I think initially the Donald Trump that was in office the first time, I think at that point, Donald Trump had some good ideas. And I'm not a Trump fan, but I'm just saying that some of the stuff that he rolled out the first term, some of that stuff, a fraction of it made sense, right? Because he rolled out, I forget what you call it, USMC. It was the United States, Canada, and Mexico agreement, which,
Hmm.
rolled out some really good stuff for the United States. And I'm not a Trump fan, but I think Trump tried to do good when he felt the black vote mattered. At some point, Donald Trump saw that he didn't need the black vote to win. So when he realized that, a lot of the good things that he was trying to roll out to help blacks and minorities just kind of went right down the tube.
Yeah, I can suppress their vote. I don't need their vote because I can suppress it.
Exactly, exactly. So I think when he was moving with that mind frame of being a politician and he wanted the vote of minorities, he wanted the vote from everybody, he was doing things that would benefit blacks on a fraction. But Donald Trump at some point realized he didn't need black people. So he said, F us. And he doesn't care about minorities. He doesn't care about blacks. So I think black people need to honor their vote and not vote for Donald Trump because he does not have our interests at heart, period. When Donald Trump realizes he can go pull Bezos, Musk, and all of those billionaires, he doesn't need us anymore. And so we better wake up.
And
He does not need our
that
vote.
goes back to the point you guys made earlier about that stock market influx, where now billionaires are buying when everything gets low, and that's you don't think that's strategic in some way? This is all
very strategic.
It
there's
is.
there's a rhyme and reason to this, and we don't have to understand it from our position because it's their game that they're playing. So
Yep.
Mhm.
Let me tackle all three of those things real
here we
quick.
go.
Let me
Go
tackle
ahead,
all
tackle
three.
it, sir.
See? Let's go, bro.
So I'm gonna start. Let me start with Taja first. So I lost my thought. Okay, so Taja, in relation to um Donald Trump. So as far as the black vote, so I would ask, this time around, he actually got more black vote than he did the first time, much
Like,
more in black and Latino vote this time around. So, what I would say to that, and I don't discount anybody's perspective, I think that it's all good. I think that this time around, there were things that I think black people and Latino voted for that weren't specific to them per se. It were more American or larger macro issues that they looked at. This is my opinion. I don't know for sure. So I don't think he offered something specifically for black people that people voted for per se, but I think people looked at American things that they felt like, okay, this aligns with things that I agree or disagree with. Whether we're talking about immigration or whether we're talking about you know maybe it might have been the trans issues. Maybe it might have been those things. It could have been those things, I think. But people voted more for him this time around than they did first time, because Hillary Clinton got a lot of black vote. I mean, he didn't destroy her in the campaign. It was still somewhat of a close campaign. So I don't know if it's that he doesn't need black people anymore. I wouldn't go that far, because it doesn't appear that,
No, it wasn't a
from
close
what I
campaign,
see it.
sir. Hillary won the popular vote. He just won where it mattered. He won the electoral, but Hillary won the
Well,
popular vote.
she didn't win the popular vote by a lot, is what I'm saying. I feel you, but it wasn't like a blowout, is what I'm saying. You know what I mean? So I feel you. And like, I voted for Hillary Clinton first time. So I didn't really know a lot about Donald Trump the first time, and I didn't take him seriously, quite honestly. So I felt like it was Hillary's time after not being able to win and become the front runner in 2008. And, Barack had his time. So I'm like, cool, now it's Hillary's time. That was my mindset in 2016. But
Mhm.
to go back to Savvy's point, let me go back to Kamala for a minute. Now, I don't necessarily agree, like, you can have a black woman who is educated, has all this experience, and here comes a mediocre white guy who gets the job. I think what happened is that Kamala, and you might hate me for this, but Kamala was arguably one of the worst candidates to run for president I've ever seen in my lifetime. Um, it's not personal
That's how
against
you
her.
really feel.
Eh.
Well, I'm just saying it's not
Mm.
personal against her. I think as a person, as a politician, she was pretty standard. She wasn't horrible. She wasn't overly likable. She was cool as a person, right? I think she's light. I think she's educated. I think she has experience. I'm not going to discard that. But I think when you're campaigning, you have to campaign and bring forth, like, what are the strong things that you have in place, or what are the things you want to bring forth. And I think I think she had an opportunity to be president, and we can go ahead, B.
Do you think that the fact that she became the candidate so late into the race would have played a part in that? Because she wasn't
That's
the original.
That's a good.
You see what I'm
point.
saying?
Yeah.
So she
That
wasn't
that's a
the
great
original.
question.
he was
Go ahead.
sabotaged.
I think she would.
She
I
didn't
think
have
she would have
enough time.
lost regardless.
Uh,
Oh, go ahead, G.
No, sorry. No, I was just listening. No, I agree with B. That was my exact thought. Was like she was put into that that whole situation just like so quickly, and it was just like okay, just a couple of months
Yeah,
to
because it was
run for
it was really
president.
June. She got in there
That
in
was
June,
that was
and I have June to November to kind of
yeah.
present myself as the front runner.
Mhm.
When our party has we were going to back one person, whatever reason we
Yeah.
can't do that anymore. I am now the replacement. So
Right.
I'm saying because
She
your
didn't have
feelings
enough
about her
time.
being like the worst candidate. Do you think that if she would have been the person from the jump that they said, "Hey, we're gonna back Kamala," and she had an ample time to present a campaign and build up a ground base and all that things that's needed to become president, do you think that you may have thought different of her at that point if it was presented in if she had enough time to prepare?
Mhm.
That's a very, very fair question. I think a
Yeah.
lot of people have presented that. Like, I think honestly, based on what I saw, if she presented the same things, I think she still would have lost, in my opinion. But I think that her coming in late, that's the Democrats' fault, because Joe Biden was
Yeah,
obviously not. See now, a lot of the
Democrats
things we
screwed
were
her.
talking about. Well, I'm sorry, say
The
again, Savvy.
Democrats screwed her. And I'm going to include Joe
Well,
Biden
they
and Barack Obama in there. They screwed her.
Well, I can definitely agree with that. I think the problem is that see now a lot of this information is coming out. There's books coming out. Former chief of staff just wrote a book talking about they never believed in her. The problem is, in my opinion, is that the Democrats one should have admitted Joe Biden was not there cognitively. They should have admitted that earlier. And then from what I understand from this book, is that the reason why Barack and Michelle waited long, they wanted to do a primary. So Kamala should have been voted in a Democratic primary or someone else, and then that would have been better. But they waited and let Joe Biden go up there, and he showed issues from what I understand far back as 2023 or earlier than that mentally. So and it's Joe Biden's fault too because it was his ego, and he wanted to run and be the man so bad, and then he let Kamala crash out. So I think that Kamala, it's just my opinion. Kamala is not a bad person. I don't think she was fit to run the country. I don't think she was the right candidate because they didn't have a bet. I don't know if they had a better choice per se at the time, but I think based on what she presented, I don't think she was fit to be president for a couple of reasons. And the only reason why I say it is what she presented. So the three major things, in my opinion, that are most important right now are as far as major issues: immigration, trade imbalance, and our deficit, government spending. Those are three hard issues to touch on, right? So, in order to govern, you can't always be liked, is the thing. So, the thing I had to say about Donald Trump is that, he has many imperfections, but when you lead, you're not always going to be liked. It's very impossible to lead effectively and everybody like you. Like, if you want everybody to like you, you're probably not going to lead very well. So, I think, to your point, Savvy, I think Kamala had an opportunity. I think if I were her, I would have went balls to the wall and addressed everything head up. And if you win, you win. You lose, you lose. But what I think she did is she avoided the biggest issues and pretended like you didn't see them and had you focus on hating Donald Trump. So she didn't effectively talk about a plan for immigration. All she talked about was a bill that failed. Um, and then what Trump did is he comes in and he does an executive order. Now, like it or not like it, illegal immigration has decreased dramatically, right? So he comes in and does that. Now, now again, and I understand there's an argument there. I'm not mad, but and I won't filibuster too long. The only thing I'm gonna say is that you have that. Then you have the other two main issues that we're talking about now: trade imbalance and our deficit as far as government spending. Kamala didn't come in and talk about any of that. Her the thing that she presented was, we're going to increase the taxes on corporations. We're going to build 3 million new homes, and we're going to give $50,000 grants to small businesses. Meanwhile, not telling you where the money's going to come from, where our deficit is $36 trillion, right? That's our deficit. And then our actual budget deficit, what we take in versus what we spend out, is $1.8 trillion. So there was no way to pay for all that stuff. And so she focused on that, abortion and other things, to kind of stoke the emotion. But these weren't, in my opinion, these were not major issues. You know what I'm saying? So the three major issues I mentioned, we can agree or disagree how to deal with them, but you can't pretend they're not there. So I think that's what made her not the right candidate. Whereas Trump, when he ran, he talked about immigration, the tariffs he's talking about now. He'd been talking about that. He talked about it in his campaign. In fact, if you go back, there's a clip of him on Oprah Winfrey in 1988. He was
And
talking
that's
about
about what he talked
trade with
about it
China.
because he ain't talk about in his campaign. So I'm sorry. I just have
No,
to
go ahead, please,
interject
please,
because what you just did,
please.
Ostu, and all the women agree. I'd probably be right too, but I can see the faces of the women. You just solidified what I just said. Okay, because
What's that?
Trump, and I watched his campaign, I was obsessed with this whole thing, and he did not provide any details on his plans. Kamala's biggest mistake was not falling from Biden. She was so loyal that she did not address some of the missteps that his administration did. She kind of fell in line and didn't speak
Sure.
to that and distanced herself from it. That was her one and only mistake. But as far as the details to which she expressed her campaign, Trump said bippity boppity boo. And people's like, ooh, yeah, you know, we got black jobs and Mexican jobs, and and we're gonna get rid of the Mexicans, they're rapists. Oh, we're gonna vote for him. He did not provide a compelling argument and details on what his plan was, but it doesn't matter because in this we can't help it because we are programmed from living in this country to just look at things a different way, especially how we look at each other as black people and black men. They did not show up for Kamala like we needed them to, but Kamala was way more intelligent. But yep, I kept watching CNN and hearing how unintelligent she was. Okay, I don't even think Trump really got accepted to college. He got purchased. He got brought into college, whatever. He's not educated. He did not provide details. The debate, she mopped him. Whatever the saying is, I can't
But
think of it right now. But it's like no matter what she did, people were always seeing her right here.
but see, but Savvy, with due respect, during this campaign, and we're gonna talk about Doge too. Like during this campaign, he did actually talk about China. He did talk about that. He did talk about immigration, and he did talk about they had started forming the concept for Doge before he got elected. Because before that, it used to be Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. So with respect, he did talk. He didn't. He may have said boobity bobbity boop, but
Probably poo.
but
And
he
he
did.
said inflammatory things
But
about
he did.
immigration. It wasn't very nice. The stuff he did
Well,
say, it was very
okay,
insulting.
it may not have made you feel good, but he did talk about government spending because like I said, started working on Doge before. Doge wasn't an after election thing. He talked about that, and they were talking about what they wanted to do. They wanted to cut the budget deficit by a trillion, not our big debt, but they wanted to cut the spending because we're in a deficit of spending. He wanted to cut that by a trillion. He talked about now, immigration was vague. I'll give you that. He did say we're going to deport deportation you ever seen. I agree. So he was vague. And then as far as the trade imbalance with China, he did talk about that. But I think what happened is that people didn't attach themselves to that emotionally during the campaign. What people attached themselves to, in my opinion, humble opinion, was immigration, and they attach themselves to women's rights, abortion. Kamala wrote on that so hard that I think in my opinion, she had a reasonable, to your point, B. I don't know if she had more time, if she would have done better, but I think she had a reasonable chance to be president. I think she miscalculated what was important. I think black men, speaking as a black
Didn't
male, I can
trust her.
speak for myself. Black men, I think, didn't show up for Kamala because of those reasons. I think that Kamala Kamala tried to do kind of a bait and switch thing to me. To me, she tried to have you focus one way so you wouldn't pay attention to other stuff. And I was like, my emotional heartstrings are not getting pulled by abortion. Abortion is not the biggest issue in the country. It is an issue, but it's not top of there. So I'm like, I'm aware of. So Trump was talking about certain things, and I was like, okay, I'm not a politician. I don't know everything, but I'm aware of trade deficit. I'm aware of our budget deficit. I'm aware of immigration. So, and I'm like, when you try to come and you start talking about you gonna build 3 million new homes, and I'm like, nah, I know that's bullshit. Nah, you know what I'm saying? But we could agree to disagree on that. But I'm like, when you start coming with stuff, I'm like, okay, if you want to get the men, cool. But I think she got a lot of the women by focusing on they're going to take away your rights in abortion. And I think
They
a lot
already
of that
have.
got the it,
They
huh?
already have. Our rights are gone. So I think that's symbolic of the rights that we're going to constantly lose. And as Black people, we're being erased from history. So I mean, there's so many things. So some of the things that she said was symbolic of things yet to come. We've lost the abortion rights. Okay, abortion is not legal in all 50 states like it used to be. My daughter,
Right.
your daughter, has fewer rights than I had at their age, than people before them. So it's sad because we're going backwards. And I mean, her biggest mistake was not distancing herself from the Biden administration. She would
I
not
agree with that.
speak against Joe Biden. That was her biggest mistake, and maybe that prevented her from
Well,
going deeper into other plans. But she did have this much time. And this is why I say we cannot afford to align ourselves so hard with the Democratic Party because the Democrats screwed her. They were not jumping to back her. And maybe they thought she wasn't electable because we have yet to have a woman president, and a black woman would be like a double, like, okay, are we really doing this? So maybe they thought she was not electable, but I don't think they really put their efforts behind her. They did it. And even with this
so
election,
do
he
you think?
overwon. Okay, he overwon. I'm sure there was some cheating. No one debated anything. We didn't go back and recount nothing. We just said, okay, Trump is president. And she rides off into the sunset. Our nation did not fight for that black woman. The Democratic Party did not fight for that black woman.
But do you think she had? So with that being said, do you think she had a reasonable chance to win though? Do you think? I mean, meaning that meeting in the concept and the context of just two people campaigning, did she have a reasonable chance? I feel like she had a
I think
reasonable
so.
chance. I,
I thought
In
she
you know what
did
I'm
spite
saying?
too.
of all the
But
things that
she
were
just didn't.
undermining her, the thing is, I'm telling you, being black is hard, but being a black woman, that woman thing just knocks down a couple of more notches. She did brilliantly for all of the opposition she had. And she had this much time, half the they hummed and hawed. Like, could you imagine the optics if they had an open primary and you have a whole vice president here behind the president? Like, what do you mean an open primary?
But you
She is
but you got
here.
to keep in mind. You got to keep in mind a context there. Here's the thing: you got to remember, people forget now. She did run in the primary in 2019, so you know. So Kamala isn't new. So let's not forget the
Yeah.
fact that she wanted to be president before. So she ran before she wasn't strong then, and she was getting destroyed in debates back then because she doesn't have strong policy. So people are rewriting history and pretending that Kamala came out of nowhere and was all unfair. She tried to run then and she got destroyed, and a lot of the things she disagreed with Joe Biden with at that time, and she hinted on Joe Biden being racist back
But
then.
policy is as
So
strong as your
my thing,
people, your policy writers. Half these people who are half of these people in the Oval Office, the president, vice president, they're figureheads. You have people to feed you all the information you need. So a candidate really is as strong as the people behind them, giving them that information. She don't have to have policy. She needs strong policy writers who are writing that stuff and giving it to her. She's a professional
But when you
litigator.
when we talk about how this election was won and the just her not getting the support, you have to put you Sue, you mentioned a lot of very intelligent reasons for you to make your vote the way you did. But the majority of Americans aren't operating at that intelligence level. You have to
for sure,
also
I
take
feel
into
you.
account the celebrity factor that comes with his name. And I don't even like
Right.
saying this name, but the Trump name carries a certain celebrity factor, which is why
Hmm.
you start to see people who literally are voting against their own interests because they're not even looking at the politics of it. They're voting for the name because that's the name that they. That's how non intelligent some Americans are. You know what I mean? Like that's those things played a very big role in this as well. So yeah, some people
You
had
know what?
legitimate and intelligent. You can look at what Kamala's policies were versus Trump's, and you can kind of make your own discernment on what you feel is best for you and your vision for the country and who you align with. But I don't think everybody who voted was making that same intelligent thought. You know, it wouldn't put it together that way. It was more like, well, he's Trump. I'm going to vote for Trump. You know what I mean? And
That's fair. That's fair. You know, and that's something that somebody else had brought up to me before about that. And you're right. That's why I like having these conversations because we can take our own reasoning and we think that everybody else feels the same way. And you're right. There are people that may have voted for him because he's white, or may have voted for him because
And there are
they
this,
think
by
he
that same
represents
token, there are some people who
a
may not
particular
have voted
thing.
for her simply because she's black and simply because she's a woman, and then some who did because it's a black woman. You know what I mean? So
That's true.
that there
That's that's,
are
that's possible.
to Savi's point, there are a lot of factors working against Kamala. Um, on top of the fact that she jumped in at the very last minute, you jumped in like the third leg of the race, like the race is over. You know what I mean? Like and
Well,
And wait, hold
that's
on.
true.
And Sally
No,
made a
please
great
go ahead.
point is in the fact that she didn't distance herself from Biden's mistakes. You were way too loyal, and to your point, Sue, in that primary when she was essentially opposing him, she should have kept that same energy with her actual campaign to say, "Hey, be honest, open up. Mistakes were made. This is what my administration is going to do versus what happened. I wasn't in charge when these things happened. I was, you know, what I mean, I was a soldier. I'm trying to be the leader. Here's what the difference is going to be." She never outlined that, and that was to her detriment. That's where a problem came in. So, yeah, I'll leave it there.
Agree.
No,
But
I definitely feel that. No, no, that's real talk. I think being a leader is hard, and I think that I don't know if she had the here's the thing, like even with Kamala when she first, I didn't know a lot about Kamala, but I wasn't automatically gonna vote for Trump. You know what I'm saying? I really didn't know a lot about her, so I was like, okay, who is she? And I, you know, just speaking for myself personally, I never had an issue with a woman being president. I was kind of excited for Hillary, and I was
yeah,
almost positive she was gonna win. I was actually shocked that Donald Trump won the first time
Oh yeah.
because I was just like, but I think where Hillary, just speaking on Hillary real quick, I think where she went wrong, she kind of scoffed at Donald Trump and kind of was like, huh, I'm obvious choice. And I think she miscalculated it. So he came in and got that because there's a good chance if he didn't win 45, he wouldn't be president now. There's a good chance he would have never been part of that presidential history.
Mhm.
You know, I don't know, but I think that she missed out on that. But Kamala, I think, look, I mean, I don't want to hurt y'all feelings here, but the debate she did was, I don't think it was that good. She did win technically, but I think she ran around and tried to bait and get him off his game, and that's fine. That's what debating is. But the fact that she wouldn't, to your point, B, when she got in late, you can't get in late and not do interviews and not talk to press because if you're not talking to people, you look like you're scared and you don't know what you want to say. So that's what that looks like. So running away from the press for about a month was a bad problem when you're already coming in late. And then when she would go to talk, to speak, you know, I can't unsee the word salad. So I think she had a lot of word salad, wasn't clear about what she wanted to say, and she looked like a weak candidate. And I think it's unfortunate because she did have a reasonable opportunity to become president, in my opinion. You know, you could say she didn't have time, but she raised a lot of money. You know, I want to say she raised around $1 billion, if I'm not mistaken. So she raised
hmm
a shit ton of money in a
Yeah,
short
she
amount of
did.
time, and she had billboards on the Vegas Strip that were like $800,000 a day. Like she raised some paper. So
Yeah.
people got behind her
Mhm.
in my opinion. But I think I do agree the Democrats put her in a position that was tough, but I think she just wasn't really prepared and she wasn't built like that. So what she did is she kind of ran. She kind of ran and skated and hope you didn't see what you saw and said, I hope if they hate Donald Trump enough, then they'll vote for me. And she didn't lose by a lot, you know, relatively to that point, but I think that's what it was. I think she had an opportunity but didn't convince people. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I think about her. So I don't have a problem with her personally, but I think being a leader in these times is not easy and people ain't gonna like you. And I think that going forward, it's gonna be a difficult thing. And so I guess I'm saying all this to say that as you think about the disdain for Trump, the question is, can someone lead America based on where we're at and be liked? Because it's going to be hard. Americans, I think we're very spoiled. I think we don't want any discomfort. We don't want anything that's going to disrupt our lives, and we'd rather be. I was telling my friend we debate about this. I think Kamala, had she won, she would have made you not think about these things and made everybody feel okay. We're going to come together. We're going to feel good and opportunity zone, and then not deal with the underlying cancers that we actually have going
Isn't
on.
that
Because
what the
there
other
is
presidents
those
did?
things are real.
So if you think about George Bush, Clinton, the other Bush, Reagan, isn't that what they all did?
They
So
absolutely did.
status
You're
quo.
absolutely
yeah.
right. And
I don't think
yeah, exactly.
anyone has ever been universally liked. You know what I mean? Like But
Barack Obama was liked.
I don't think he was universally. He wasn't universally like. There are,
Not
you know what I'm
universally, but
saying?
he had a
Like,
high approval rating.
but yeah, very high approval rate. But I'm saying the difference is we go back to the presentation. You know what I mean? Like yeah, there were people who really disliked him. The whole birther debate, all that shit. He went through some stuff too, but he handled it with a sense of grace, and it's a sense of grace that we don't get from the current administration. And therein
Well, that's my
lies,
that's my that's my question. I guess my open ended question is that do you think you can handle the tough? Do you think there's someone who can handle tough things and also be liked? You know what I'm saying?
It's
Because
not
and let me just say
necessarily
this before you
about.
answer. Let me just say this. Not not about as far as the presentation.
mhm,
I mean, because you can present things nicely. Barack Obama had an amazing presentation for me, the best I've seen. But
Yeah.
if he did something that he felt like he had to do that made Americans uncomfortable, can you still like that person? Because that's what I think is more the question. I agree, Trump is not likable, but if Barack Obama decided, if he was president right now and felt like he had to raise tariffs to do certain things, would we get behind him and say, I understand where he's coming from and what he needs to do if he explained it? Or would we be pissed off if we had to pay higher prices or went through stock market chaos, blah, blah, blah?
I think it would be a combination of
yeah,
both,
Both. Yeah.
because again,
yeah,
you have a
Yep.
presentation thing, and
Hmm.
certain hard things are much easier to deal with from a likable person, from a
True.
person who is respectful, and because a person who is respectful shows respect for the people that they're talking to. And so it's much easier to accept a hard thing from somebody who you feel respects you,
Hmm.
somebody who you feel, values you in some way.
Hmm.
And yeah, you might be pissed off about it. And like, oh man, this sucks. I wish there was some other way. And you don't have to like
yeah.
it,
It's not always
but
what you say; it's how you say it. How you say it
it's
plays
how
is
you
so
say it.
is so
Presentation.
big, and so yeah. There's gonna be people who are. I don't think anybody can be universally liked, or they can do things that we might dislike as individuals. But if it's actually explained and it's communicated in a certain manner, we can accept it.
You
You know what
trust
I
it.
mean? If we
And you
know
Exactly.
there's
trust
a
it.
what the hmm, I'm sorry.
Hmm.
And you
Go ahead.
trust it. You trust it.
And I can yeah.
Right.
Guys, I'm holding my tongue. I'm holding my tongue
And you
because
have been for a while now.
If Barack Obama was doing what Donald Trump is doing to the economy right now, his ass would be shot. I'm sorry, y'all. He wouldn't be in the
Agreed.
White House. You wouldn't know where Barack was.
Hmm.
They put a,
Yeah.
come on, y'all.
Okay.
Then
Come
there's
on
No,
that.
hold your
now.
tongue. I mean, that's
Yeah.
so you're saying that he would be pretty much persecuted for doing what Donald Trump is doing.
He was
Absolutely,
persecuted
y'all. I
for
mean,
wearing a
come
cream
on, y'all.
suit, y'all.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say for the
Right.
smallest thing,
I mean, they
you know.
I mean, they wouldn't do anything to support this man. As a matter of fact, if Barack was not president, Donald Trump probably never would have been president.
Boom. I'm glad you said that.
No,
Mm.
that's interesting. That's very interesting.
So
So,
I'm holding
well,
my
what?
tongue
Well, say
because
more on that. Say more
I
on that.
don't.
Why?
I
Why
mean,
do you say that?
because it was when Barack came into office. He's loved. Black people supported him more than they did Kamala. I mean, white women supported Barack. I mean, they came, and white women did not vote for
Nope.
Kamala. White women voted for Donald Trump.
Hmm.
So wait a minute. I mean, this is too deep. We don't have enough time to
No,
have
we
this
got time.
conversation.
Yeah, please go
But
ahead.
let me just say this. When Barack came into office, he divided the United States more. He just angered white men.
Oh,
I mean, he did. I mean, they supported him, but then they turned against him too. Why? I mean, that probably has some deep rooted racial,
that goes Nick.
you know,
Yes.
I'm
But
behind
Barack
it.
had pretty high approval ratings, as far as I understand, throughout his presidency. So,
He
why do you say that?
he had approval ratings, but he couldn't get shit passed
He
while
had
he
no
was in
Congress.
Right.
office.
He had no Congress
I
Mhm.
mean, they
charter.
would not support
They shot
him.
down
I
everything.
mean, they shot down his
Yeah.
policies. They didn't support him. They vote. I mean, people voted for him, but when he became president, he could not get things passed as the president of the United States.
Mhm.
He could not get support from Congress.
So let me ask this. So what would you think if Barack just went just like Trump and just executive this, executive that, and didn't
He
care?
didn't do
If
that
they would
because he
escort him
wanted to
out,
follow the
he'd be
law.
done.
But
Well,
Exactly.
you're
they would
asking
have.
you're asking me
Yeah,
what I
they
think.
would
Yes, right
have.
What do
now.
they
Oh, we
would
don't know
Yes,
what to
yeah.
do. But if it was
absolutely.
Barack,
But
they'd
he
figure
didn't
out
do
what to
that.
do. And
He didn't
It's an
abuse his power
interesting
in that way.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's
that's
how
an
I do it.
interesting question
So
though. I would probably if Barack, I guess knowing how I look at things, if Barack was doing some of the same things, I would trust him because I'd say, you know what, okay, what the reason you're doing it, it makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm more of a logic guy, so I'm like, okay, if what you're doing is there's a particular reason, because there's some things you do from a leader standpoint that affect today, and there's some things that affect 10 years from now,
Hmm.
15 years from now. So
mm,
anything that's monetary is not going to happen overnight. I mean, anything that's economy or anything monetary is going to take some years. I mean, maybe 5 years at the earliest. I mean, a lot of things. So we didn't get where we're at now overnight. So it take years to get there as far as policy. But that's a good point. That's a good point. People probably would look at it differently based on who he is, and even if he was doing something right, they
mhm,
may have got on him hard. And I think that could be some of the same issue in the inverse with Trump because depending on what he's doing, I think we also have a lot of people who are like, I don't care what he's doing. I don't like it. I don't like him. So I think it could go the same way with one way looking at Barack Obama for one way, and then you could also say that possibly about Donald Trump too, because But I thought it was interesting that you said that Donald Trump wouldn't have been president. Now that's an interesting
mm,
point, Tanja. I've never thought about that. The reason why I thought Donald Trump won is because I thought in 2016 Americans, or 2015 going into 16, I thought Americans were tired of the average politician, and he came in there. The way he debated and the stuff he was saying was totally different. So I think Americans kind of rejected the average politician.
Nope.
That's how I saw it.
Nope.
White
So
supremacy.
I go back to the popular vote. Americans didn't reject it. Americans voted for Hillary. She
Typical.
just didn't win where the electoral votes were. But the popular vote was Hillary. She won. She got more votes. So America didn't reject the typical politician. We actually in 2016 rejected him. But again, it wasn't how many votes he got. It was where he got the votes
Yep.
that mattered more, and that's how he
mm.
won
well,
that.
that's a good point. That's a good point because I think they should do away with the electoral college.
Absolutely.
I
I
think they should
agree.
have
I
I
think
do
been
that
too.
done with
that was
that.
the election where that should have been done because
Okay.
that was the perfect
I,
example of it's not
I was
what.
going back to look at that. That's a good point, B. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, bro. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you good. You good. Go ahead.
Oh, no, no. I was just going back. I was just looking up what you were saying. She won the popular vote
Hmm.
by 2.9 million.
Yeah.
So
So Americans voted for her. We just, like I say,
interesting.
we just they didn't vote where it mattered the most, or he won. He won in the states that it mattered more because electoral votes are how we elect presidents. So
But to
Okay.
Shy's point, like I get where you're going with that because people could have looked at him like, oh, this is a businessman. Maybe he'll bring a whole new perspective to this government that we've had for years and years. So I
A
see where
lot of
you're going
people
with
thought
that.
that.
But no.
I mean, like when I hear people say he's a businessman, I mean that confuses me. I mean, the man had what, six businesses and they all failed, or he or he committed some type of fraudulent act on what was it, Trump University. I mean, he had a real estate company. I mean, come on, the man is a crook, guy. I mean, he's a crook. So I mean,
That
I
may
don't
be a
even
that
know
may be
how
a little
we
bit of a
Yep.
stretch
he
though,
is a
as far as
crook. It's no
crook.
little bit. The man is a
he's
crook.
a convicted felon,
I
sir.
mean,
That's just
He is a crook. Yeah, he's a felon. He's a
Well,
convicted felon.
and here's the thing,
Exactly.
though.
And
This it's not new either. This is not
Most
new
most
information.
people with
People act
businesses
like
fail
it just
many
came
times and
out.
file bankruptcy. That's not really
Listen,
like
do you think Barack ever would have been president
No,
if he was a convicted felon? I mean,
Nope.
come on.
never in a
They
million.
wouldn't even let that man think about walking in the White House. He couldn't even walk in the White
Yeah.
House. I mean, they didn't even want felons to vote. So why are we having this discussion? This is ridiculous
Because
now.
his
Come on.
whiteness prevailed. And
well,
that's the bottom
Yeah.
line with
what
him.
His
It's
privilege,
his
his white
whiteness. It's his
privilege.
white privilege.
This this is the same man that said he could walk out on Pennsylvania Avenue and kill people and would not go to jail. And he's almost doing that. He is almost they're pretty much allowing him to destroy this country. Period.
well, let me okay, so with that point, and then I want to talk about Doge for a little bit on that point.
Can we talk about
So,
flowers and butterflies at this
Yeah, I
point?
got about 10 minutes left. This is school night.
Me too.
We gonna go to Dodge
okay.
next. I don't think we got time, brother.
You know,
Don't.
so let me ask y'all though. Here's the thing. We know that, and there may be a time in the future where you don't like a president. I mean, that's going to happen one way or another. People don't like their take a look at Brandon Johnson. Brandon Johnson is a mayor. He has a 7%
Yeah,
approval rating. People hate him. He's a black man in a black city. People hate him.
fully
He has a
black people.
horrible, horrible record.
Got a
So
terrible barber
that's
too.
just
Man, thank
Bro,
you.
I
Oh
hate
my
his
God.
haircut, bro. I hate his
That
haircut.
is whack. The little mohawk, that is
God,
tired.
I hate
No.
that.
you know what?
Oh, that's
B,
funny.
why I love you, bro. You say some of the
Oh,
things that are like in
Jesus.
my subconscious that don't come out of my mouth, but I knew there was something I
Yes.
don't like
I
about
hate
him.
his haircut, bro. It kills me every time. I've been like, this.
He's got the
oh
You know what he's got? He's got the same haircut that kind of what my son has. I cut my son's hair like that. And that's what you're supposed to have when you're like 9 or 10 or
But not in
14.
your 40s.
You ain't supposed to have like that mohawk when you're in your
He
40s and
be a grown
50s.
man leading the city with a haircut like that, bro. Like,
okay, wait a minute. Wait a minute. That just took me to Baltimore. I'm here in Baltimore with Brandon Scott when he came out with his afro and people were going crazy. Like white people were like, "What is that mushroom on the top of his head?" Like,
yeah,
I'm like, well, I mean, I didn't have a problem with it, but
I would prefer an afro versus this mohawk thing that
This
this dude
weird
got, man.
brohawk
Like,
mohawk, it's not hot. It's not.
Let
it's
me look at Brandon
It's
Scott.
like a
Okay,
mohawk
now
Oh
Brandon
slash
Scott.
boy.
Gumby. It's like
yeah, like it's the
No, Brandon Scott's haircut is for Baltimore. His hair is cool. Like it's not crazy.
yeah,
Like he still looks
there
like a
was.
grown
I
man.
mean, but he
It's
gets so much
respectable.
hate. It's awful, mostly from
No, Brand
white people, but it's
Brandon Johnson's haircut though. That
I'm gonna
haircut,
have to
I
look.
knew there was
like
something. I couldn't quite put my finger on it.
it's
You It was in my subconscious. It's like something annoys me when he speaks and I look at him, I'm like, dog, I can't
that's
take
what
you
it
yeah,
is.
seriously. That's
Like,
what it is.
you went to the barber and
It's the
asked for
haircut.
that, bro. Like you
on
actually sat down
purpose.
in the chair.
Yeah.
Continuously ask for it too.
Yes.
Yes. That's his trademark.